Drinks, food, art, fun. This is Hops and Spirits Kentucky.
The calendar has officially flipped into May, and also the Derby's been run, so that means we're getting pretty close to summertime. I hope your week is off to a good start, and we've got a good episode for you this week as we continue our Road Trip 2023 series, and we head up to Cincinnati, although, as you'll see, it has a cool connection to what we do here on Hops and Spirits Kentucky, which is talk about food, drinks, fun, and so much more. You'll just have to wait for that. Before we get into that, though, what's pouring around Kentucky, some news and notes. More than 20 food trucks representing 14 different nationalities will converge at Louisville's Waterfront Park Big Four lawn on Saturday, May 13th for the International Food Truck Festival from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Entry into the festival is free, and cultural performances will take place throughout the day with a headlining event concert rounding out the event. You can check out their Facebook event page for more details. Black Soil announced a new monthly dinner series in Lexington that blends agriculture, mental health, and the arts into one space. Heal Over a Meal will take place at the Living Arts and Science Center in Lexington and include a dinner, presentations from local mental health professionals, and networking. The Burl in Lexington has announced its first ever Burl County Fair, an event that merges music festivals with nostalgic county fairs. From Friday, September 8th to Sunday, September 10th, residents can enjoy games, rides, petting zoos, and more. Keep an eye out for when the live music lineup drops this week. Then in Louisville, again, number 15, named after Kentucky being the 15th state to join the Union, is the latest bar and music venue to hit Whiskey Row. Scheduled to open May 18th, the social hall located at 121 West Main Street in a building that was previously the last vacant building on Whiskey Row will stretch across 5 stories in a basement and feature a music venue and 3 bars. It's the second concept from Spencer Frank, CEO of Numbers Holding Company, which opened the first location, number 36, in Denver, Colorado. Louisville's Chef Edward Lee has officially opened his first Korean steakhouse, Nami, which is part of Martin on Main, a new 6-story apartment and retail complex in Butchertown. And a new bar and restaurant concept called Sphinx is opening in the former Gold Bar space in Butchertown, which closed last August. The new owners, Brian and Kristen Grubb, plan to keep the neighborhood bar vibes and introduce a modern Southern-inspired menu of shareable and handheld items. So a lot going on in the world of food and drink here in Kentucky. But up next is our Q&A with Jimmy Longbottom of Longbottom Bird Ranch as we continue our Road Trip Series 2023 and see how birds tie in with drinks and fun. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our Q&A as part of our Road Trip Series 2023. You might be wondering why birds and ducks have anything to do with maybe drinks and food in Kentucky, but you'll soon find out. Let's welcome in Jimmy Longbottom, the founder. I'm going to also call you the Duck Whisperer there at Longbottom Bird Ranch.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting about ducks and beer and breweries, all my favorite things.
Well, and that's exactly kind of how this happened. I wasn't able to get out to Mirror Twin when you were down here in Lexington recently, but I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then all of a sudden I discovered that you've got a whole tour happening. And I think you'll be back in Kentucky in Lexington later on, but you're also up in the greater Cincinnati area. And we'll touch on all that here in a second, but the Cliff Notes version about yourself. But like I said, don't give me too much info because we've got some good questions coming up.
Sure. So I run a duck retirement community is what I like to call it, but I think it's basically a duck rescue, a duck sanctuary, and we take in domestic ducks, and we're on the west side of Cincinnati, Ohio, but like you said, we travel all around the tri-state doing different events and fun stuff.
Well, and I guess, how did you and having ducks happen? How did that happen? When did that start for you?
So I started as you're in Kentucky, so I was a big Wendell Berry nerd, and I read all of his stuff and Wes Jackson stuff, and I really wanted to do something to kind of get more in touch with like the food chain, or for me. So I started with a flock of backyard chickens. So I got a bunch of chickens. I wanted to raise them for eggs, and I did that. And then one day I was in the feed store, and in the tub next to the chickens is a tub, and it has ducks in it. And I was like, well, this has got to be as easy as raising chickens. It was not. It turned out to be pretty difficult. I had them when I was a kid. I guess my parents did all the hard work when I was a kid. So I started sharing that information with people online and on local Facebook groups, being like, "Hey, I've got these ducks. I found out that it's pretty hard to take care of, but this is what I have learned." And instead of that helping other people with ducks, they in turn were like, "Oh, cool. Do you have maybe some more space? You can just take my duck." And that is how that first domino fell. And I just kept saying, "Yeah, I guess I got a little bit more room," and that's how it began.
Well, I was about ready to say then, because that's like the perfect segue. Is when did you all of a sudden become the retirement home for
Yeah.
for folks that were kind of abandoning, in a sense, those domesticated ducks?
Yeah, it is funny because the switch flipped really suddenly, where I was, these were my pet ducks and I love ducks and I was raising ducks, and then all of a sudden feel like I woke up one day, I'm like, oh no, I'm a duck rescue. I don't when did this happen? When COVID lockdown happened, I got furloughed from my job, and that's kind of when I turned everything up a little bit. I live in a neighborhood, so I had, my flock was my backyard, but we've only got like 3/4 of an acre, so there's only so much you can do. So I found a farm, and I leased acreage off of them to start raising ducks out there, and that was right like 2020, right when lockdown began, and that's when everything turned up, and I just started taking in every duck.
And for those that don't maybe understand what the difference is, what is the biggest difference between wild ducks and domestic ducks? Because there is a difference.
Yes, yeah, and this is the number one thing we really talk about, because I think the issue um, that we have with people dumping ducks is you get a duck from a feed store as a pet, you decide you no longer want to keep it, and you're like, well, I see ducks down at the park all of the time, so I don't want this duck anymore. It can just go live in the wild like it's supposed to with its friends. Uh, but they can't survive out there because domestic ducks, although they have all the same pieces of a wild duck, they are breeds that we people have bred through generations to be fat and flightless because they're meat ducks. So they can't fly like those wild ducks. They're about, depending on the breed, they can be 4 times the size of a wild duck. That's why they can't fly. They're too heavy. Uh, so they can't survive out there because they can't migrate south when it gets cold. Up here, that's a big issue. They can't fly away from predators that are trying to get them. And if they get dumped someplace where there isn't a great food source, wild ducks can fly to somewhere else that has food while these domestic ducks can't. So if you're somebody who gets a pet duck and you leave it at a park where it doesn't have a good food source, it's either going to starve to death, freeze to death when winter gets there, or it's going to be the first thing the coyote gets when it comes through the park. And people, you don't know that until you know it. And we are fortunate that we do a lot of live events, and that's the first thing. If you learn nothing else when you come to our events, you have to hear me say that. I say it 1,000 times because we just want to amplify that message and get the word out about that.
That way you don't get any more ducks in your retirement facility.
Yeah, because I can't just keep taking every duck in the world. I mean, every time I take in a new duck, I say I don't have any more space, but then somehow we figure it out. But yeah, we just gotta stop the leak, right? That's what we're trying to do.
And I was gonna say, and for those that are like going, okay, maybe I do want a pet duck, what should they know about raising pet ducks and what goes in with it? Because like you said, it's not as simple as one might assume.
Yeah, I think I think there are a lot of people who want pet ducks who, I see them online all the time. We have a lot of people on social media who follow us who are great pet owners and love learning about how to take care of their ducks, and they love their ducks. The big things to know. They're not chickens. That sounds pretty obvious, but chickens, hey, everybody get chickens. I have chickens. They're great. They're very passive. They're easy to take care of. Ducks need water to swim in all the time, but they also need dry bedding to sleep on. So keeping that balance is really difficult. So it's a lot of mucking and cleaning up, a lot more than with chickens. Ducks, the general way to put this, so mating season lasts for 4 months, and male ducks are very violent during mating season to the point where they will kill the females, they will kill the other males. Um, Males are usually the ducks that people dump because they don't lay eggs, and people, you're not getting eggs from them. What are you going to use them for? Plus, then people find out they're really mean. So I have a majority of my ducks are male ducks for that reason. So right now, if you check us out on Instagram, I posted last night that I have built the Shawshank Prison for ducks, which is a barn, and it has 12 different cells in it right now, and they all have to be completely separated until the end of June, so that they're safe. But that sounds terrible. It is. So if you're thinking about getting a duck, just know that's part of the deal. That's part of the care.
You have to be prepared for all things that can happen. And
Yes.
and I think that's maybe where people go wrong, is they just don't maybe read up enough and learn enough.
Yeah, simple, like just a little Google search before you get a duck is a good idea. But at feed stores you can buy them basically as an impulse buy, which is difficult. If your kid's standing next to you and says, "Can we please get one of these ducks?" I mean, I buy feed there all the time. I watch it happen, and mom and dad are like, "I guess." So yeah, look into it a little bit before you do that.
And obviously, like you said, it's kind of grown for you, where you were kind of just, you had some, next thing you know, you're gaining a whole flock of ducks. When did Longbottom Bird Ranch kind of become a thing and become, something that you were sharing with everybody?
So I guess 2 years ago, so after I had taken in a lot of birds, I knew that I wanted to do something to help educate people, because I realized this was a problem, and I was going to fall into this place where I was just taking in every domestic duck in the tri-state area, and I couldn't do that. So I went to a local park up here, and I paid them to let me rent a shelter, and I advertised everywhere, and I said, "Here's a class about ducks. I'll bring you some ducks. You can meet some ducks." And so a bunch of people turned out. It was very exciting. It was like a big success. A lot of people came out, and I got to tell them a lot of the information that I tell people now. And then at the end, I was like, if anybody wants to give me a couple bucks, I paid a lot of money to do this today. And all the people came up, and they gave me money to pay for the shelter. And that's kind of where it started. And I like to tell that story because it's funny, because there was uh, that same park district now like pays us to come out there and do the same thing. So I'm like, it's a nice turnaround where we've moved into the red, right? So, um, but that's kind of how it started. And then from there, a brewery. I've worked in breweries pretty much my whole career. That's how to tie into Birds and Brews. And a local brewery, High Grain Brewing here in Cincinnati, reached out to me for their anniversary party and said, "Would you bring some ducks up here for the anniversary?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." And that's how it started. I did that event, and it kind of clicked because people that go to breweries are um, cool for the most part. I've found really generous, and it's a great place to meet people who uh, aren't seeking out this information. Maybe people who aren't going to be Googling, "Hey, tell me more about domestic ducks." Instead of, you finding me, I get to show up at your brewery, and you walk by, and everyone who walks by has to stop and be like, why are there ducks at this brewery?" And then I get to tell them.
I was gonna say it's a great conversation starter, and it's so
Yeah.
cool to see how that has come up. And for those that are curious, like, how many ducks do you have, and is it only just ducks at the bird ranch?
It's not. So we've got other birds. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. But so with the number of ducks I have, I try and I shy away from saying the actual number anywhere that it's recorded or that I'm posted about it, because there's like uh, zoning things and all that. But I would say, if you thought of a number right now, I don't know what number you have in your head, but if you thought of one, I would almost guarantee you it's more than that number. I'm almost positive, but I don't want to say the exact number.
I understand. I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
No, no, no. Yeah, so we also have we have the chickens, like I said. I also have a couple of Canadian geese. With one has her wing amputated. Um, I ended up with those because we don't take in Canadian geese. I'm not a wildlife sanctuary or rescue. As a matter of fact, if a wildlife sanctuary or rescue is listening to this, I have a couple Canadian geese for you. I haven't been able to find one yet, but they got hit by a car, and sometimes we also do transportation. So like someone will reach out to us and I'll go capture and maybe bring to a wildlife rescue or rehab, because it's one of the skills I picked up is catching birds. But with these two, I kind of got stuck holding the potato because the wildlife rescue then wouldn't take them. So while I was trying to find a place, I went and had the work done to save them. So they pulled bullets out of them and amputated these wings. So then I eventually found a sanctuary, but they're like, we're just going to euthanize them. Which, with Canadian geese, it's tough. There's a lot of them. They can't save everyone. But my thought at the time was, I spent a lot of money keeping these two geese alive. I'm not prepared to do that. So we've still got them hanging out there until we find a forever home for them. But they seem to be pretty happy with the ducks for the last 6 months or so.
I was gonna say they're just hanging out with their friends
Yeah.
and like you said, at the end of the day, how this all came to be, being on this show is your Birds and Brews tour. How obviously I know it started with one brewery, but
Yeah.
it's kind of built a little bit since then.
Sure. Yes. So last year, so after I did the high grain event, I've been trying to explore ways to amplify the message of the plight of domestic ducks, get that out in front of people, and then to also raise some money for us because this has become very expensive. And I'm a bartender. Like, this, I make okay money, but I can't pay for this whole thing. So instead of doing, what I see a lot of places do, just because it's kind of what you're used to, is that please help us. We need money. We need food. I wanted to do some kind of value exchange where, your kids get to come up, meet ducks, play with ducks, and then, they had a good time, and then you feel compelled to put some money into our jar. So because that brewery event went so well, I knew so many people at breweries, from work. I figured that would be an easy place to start. And it turned out great because so many breweries were excited about the idea of having ducks at the brewery as a cool event. There are some places that thought it was a little weird and wasn't for them. Uh, and because it is such a unique event, we got so much attention, which really helped amplify the message. So we had a lot of news outlets pick us up, and we still do today. I mean, I'm talking to you right now,
Yeah.
right? Which has been awesome for what we're trying to do, which is get this message in front of people. And not to mention, like I had said before, people at breweries are just really cool and generous. So you go out on a Saturday, you're having a beer, you're feeling good, and then I don't know, you get to meet some ducks. Buy a t-shirt, buy a sticker, it's great.
I was gonna say it's a cool thing, and like you said, it's really educational, and you see it all the time with maybe other type of rescues. And you think of dogs and cats and ducks are just like that. They can be pets too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that we run into is I have so many people say people get ducks as a pet, and you're like, yeah, they do, and that's why I love doing the brewery events, because in the like bubble of um, like farms and all that I live in on social media, everyone on there already knows. So I'm
Mhm.
not preaching to the choir if I talk to any of them. At breweries, you get to meet people from all walks of life and tell them something they probably didn't know just because it's information they've never had the chance to come across. So it's great.
And then, like I said, you were down here in Lexington, Mirror Twin just recently. I think you're coming in July to Ethereal down here, and then there's a whole plethora of other places you're hitting in the tri-state area, and so forth. How do these stops work? How long are you here? You bring in a couple ducks. How does that work?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked. This is something I spend a lot of time thinking about, but I never get to talk to anyone about except the ducks. Uh, I will. So I started out last year. I only did Cincinnati breweries because I wanted to test the waters. And then this year, I'd been to most breweries in Cincinnati. I wanted to go a little bit further, but I don't want to keep the ducks in the car for 6 hours while we drive to Nashville or something. So I picked some cities within 2 hours of Cincinnati, which lucky for me, Cincinnati is centrally located. So we're going to Lexington, Louisville, Columbus, Chillicothe, Indianapolis, and we show up. I set up a little pen outside, or depending on the brewery, inside. Uh, Set up a merch table, set up a little pool for the ducks. They swim around for about 3 hours. I pick them up. I let people pet them, meet them, sometimes hold them, depending on the person and the how the ducks are feeling, and get to talk about what we do. And the breweries have been amazing partner, without exception, amazing partners in every stop. Uh, so I mean, that's how the event works, and everyone seems to have a good time, and God willing, the rain holds off, and we have a good event.
And like I said, it's a great way for folks to learn and have a beer. And I'm guessing, like I said, you enjoy having a beer too, and so it's kind of a win-win for you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. One of the best parts is that somehow I seem to leave each event with a couple six packs from the breweries. They're all very very cool like that. So my wife is always very excited that our fridge stays stocked. I may keep ducks in the garage that she's not wild about, but at least a six pack shows up when I come home.
I was gonna say it's a trade-off. At the end
It's a
of the day,
trade-off.
it's a
Yes,
trade-off. So,
that's right.
and like you said, obviously people are very generous, and sometimes they are able to give some money. Other times, it's different. If people do want to give back to the bird ranch and things, what are some of the ways they can do that?
Well, you can. So obviously, money makes this world go around out here. So you can donate on our website. There's a place for you to donate. Like I talked about before, we do like to do like a certain like a value exchange if possible. So we sell things. So you buy a T-shirt, buy stickers. All those are for sale online. Um, you don't have extra money. I don't have extra money. Uh, Follow us on social media and help me amplify the message by sharing what we do, or just come out to an event and learn about what we do. And then there is volunteering opportunities, but it doesn't look like a lot of people who volunteer with us think that I need help feeding ducks treats, or maybe like petting ducks. And that's not what I need help with. I need help with cleaning stuff and big projects. So if you're someone who's interested in that, there's a form on the website. You can shoot me an email on there. And the other thing that I really need help with is at these tour stops, I have a merch set up, and it's hard for me to manage that and to handle the animals. So if you're in one of these cities and you see a date that you're free, if you want to come out and help me collect money and sell T-shirts, it's a huge help.
So a lot of different ways to give back, and I think you've also got a fun event coming up here in May, and that is the Great Rubber Duck Race on May 20th.
Yeah, it's our most ambitious event yet. I'm laughing because before we got on, I was sending a long email detailing my plan for the race to the owner of the business we're going to be at. But yeah, we're going to be at Cobalt Station, which is a restaurant on the east side of Cincinnati in Milford. And we ended up there because the owner of that restaurant had two ducks that got loose and got attacked by a coyote in the winter. And she reached out to me, and I took them in, and I was able to rehab them. So we still have those two ducks. So she was like, if you want to do an event out here. And I was like, yeah. So here's what I want to do. You got a big creek out back. I want to dump a bunch of rubber duckies in it and race them. So that's what we're doing. So on the 20th, we're going to have our rescued ducks out there from noon to 3. At 2 o'clock, we're going to be racing rubber duckies down the Red Creek, and the winners are going to get some big gift baskets. A lot of local businesses have given us gift cards and swag to make gift baskets out of. A lot of businesses that just want to support in one way or another. And if you are not local to Cincinnati and you can't be there, you can still register a duck on the website. And if you win, I will ship the prize to you. We have prizes for people who aren't local. So if you don't go to our, Mazunte, the local Mexican restaurant, I have a basket of stuff for someone who's out of town too.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun and a great way to give back. And I guess to wrap things up, what's the next step here for the Bird Ranch? What are you hoping to accomplish as the year goes on and maybe as you look toward the future?
Yeah, yeah. I not much of a 5-year plan kind of guy, but
Five
I
day.
would say, yeah, yeah, maybe, maybe. The getting our message in front of as many people as possible is really what the goal is. But a concrete thing that I would like to see happen and is possible is they sell ducklings at feed stores all through the tri-state. It is, like I'd mentioned before, an impulse buy. You go in, and if you're 18 years old and you just think it'd be fun to bring a duck and make a TikTok video with it, you can buy them today. You can go. I would like to see that stop at the feed stores. We have local hatcheries, so you can still support that. You can still buy ducklings at local hatcheries, but if you're taking that extra step to go to a hatchery to get your ducks, you're probably taking the extra step to learn about ducks. So getting rid of them in the feed store tubs is really what my end game is. I think that will clear up about 75% of this domestic duck dumping issue. And as a matter of fact, if the mayor of Cincinnati is listening, I've been emailing you. Get back at me. But that's probably the end game.
Well, hopefully that can put you into retirement from the Bird Ranch, and that
Yeah.
that would be a good thing. But until then, folks can check you out on social media and maybe grab a beer or a cider or a drink at one of the stops on the tour and learn about some good information and also see some ducks, because who doesn't want to see some ducks when you're having a drink?
I know I do.
Exactly. It's a good time. And Jimmy, thank you for sharing this with me. And folks, like I said, swing by one of the stops. There's a full tour list on the website and social media, and I think it'd be well worth your time.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you having us on.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.